Hey guys, if you feel like subscribing, go for it. In this video, I'm going to be ranking the 9 top NBA free agents still left on the free agent market. And we can go ahead and just dive right into it. At number 9, I have Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn was considered part of the Miami Heat's long line of turning developmental projects into rotation players. But since leaving the Miami Heat, Nunn has struggled to find a new NBA home. He is receiving interest from Olympiakos Piraeus in Greece while attempting to make a comeback to the NBA. Now, Nunn was among the best stories in this league, especially from his rookie season back in 2019. He finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting after starting most of the year in Miami, and that was him helping the Heat make it to the NBA Finals. He averaged 15 points in 67 starts before he had this pretty crazy knee injury that ruined his next season. Nunn then signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, and after the first year, he didn't really play. Then going into his second year, he sort of had an unproductive year, averaging 7 points, 1 rebound, and 1 assist, and then he was traded to the Washington Wizards. From there, even the Wizards, he only averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. So it sucks, but Nunn has yet to come close to his same accomplishments that he had with the Heat. So hopefully a stint with the Greek team overseas could help him have a little bit of a comeback. I mean, Dennis Schroeder was able to do it with Germany, and I know that Nunn is a solid role player, so maybe his ability to play both guard positions may help a contending NBA team in the near future. Now going into number 8, I have TJ Warren, and honestly, it's tough to capture what exactly happened with this guy. As of last season, Warren only played a total of 16 regular games with the Phoenix Suns, and unfortunately, he just could not carve out that consistent 5th starting spot next to Paul, Book, Durant, and Ayton. Now, the Suns constantly cycled between other forwards as well, such as Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie, depending on the matchups and the on-court performance. Now, Warren, in this case, he had a few promising moments for the Suns in his brief return. He even had this one game where he had 16 points, 8 rebounds, and that was back in March of just this year. Now, Warren was another victim of Monty Williams' rotation cuts for the playoffs, and only appearing in 6 games, he averaged about 3 points and only shooting 31.6% from the field, and then even worse from that, he shot 14.3% from beyond the arc. Now, similar to the regular season and due to the limited time with the team, he never could really establish himself as a clear rotational piece, and from there, he could not really provide the Suns the much-needed spark that they needed off the bench. And then you add in the fact that Torrey Craig had some pretty phenomenal three-point shooting in the first round of the playoffs, where he was shooting 55% from 3 on basically 4 attempts per game. And then Okogie was providing value as a scrappy defender and a serious threat on the offensive glass. So because of this, Warren could just not carve out a consistent spot in the rotation. Now, overall, the guy did average 4 points and 3 rebounds last season. He's 29 years old, and he doesn't seem to have much of a future outlook at the moment. It's honestly pretty crazy because I remember just a few seasons ago during the NBA bubble, he was going off for 20 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. And he was even crazier in the playoffs for the NBA bubble. But it's just insane to see how quickly players can go from being a top guy to the bottom of the totem pole. Now, going to number 7, we got Kemba Walker. Now, Kemba was one of the few top 10 picks of the Charlotte Hornets, and that was during the regime of Michael Jordan, and he just so happened to find success when he was there. He was a 3-time All-Star in his 8 seasons, and that led them to the playoffs twice, but with no playoff series wins. Now, after losing superstar guard Kyrie Irving in free agency, the Celtics then signed Kemba Walker to a 4-year deal, which was worth $141 million. Now, Kemba would be named an All-Star in the first season with the Celtics, and that's when Walker's career started to crash pretty quickly. In the days that he led up to one of his games, the Celtics medical staff told him that he had a strict 20-minute per game option, and part of that was because of the swelling that he had on his left knee. But during the game, he played exactly 29 minutes and 10 seconds, and he finished the game with 23 points and 3 assists. So he basically played 10 minutes over what the doctors told him not to do. So you would think, okay, the guy scored 23 points and 3 assists. He was okay, right? Well, no, he wasn't, because those extra 10 minutes literally caused Walker's knee to swell up again, and then it caused him to have his knee drained, which then had him sidelined for 3 weeks. And then when he returned after that, he went from averaging about 22 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds a game to then only averaging 14 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds for the entire rest of the season. So then at that point, Walker was then traded to Oklahoma City Thunder in 2021, and that was for Al Horford. Then immediately they asked him to be bought out, and then he went to sign on with the New York Knicks. And then in his last stint with the NBA playing for the Dallas Mavericks, he only had a 10-day contract. And then on July 21st, 2023, Walker then signed with the EuroLeague club AS Monaco to try and hopefully get his career back on track. Now at 33 years old, I still think Walker has a lot to offer, especially for a championship contender in the NBA. Hopefully this short stint playing overseas will be enough to get him back on a team maybe by next season. Of course, that's only if his knee and his health in general keeps up. Now, number 6 I have on the list is Jalen Noel. Now, Jalen was a second-round pick. He had his entire stint with the Timberwolves for 3 seasons. He played 65 games last season at around 19 minutes per game. He then averaged about 45% from the field and a low 29% from 3. Overall, he was averaging about 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Now, honestly, guys, these are some pretty decent stats that might be worth an NBA roster spot, but unfortunately, his long-term plans with the Timberwolves might have officially come to an end. Now, there's no new suitors stepping up to the plate, so if Noel is lucky, maybe the Wolves might re-sign him, maybe for a lower price than what's initially expected by him and his team, but he'd also have to be willing to accept a lower amount in general. Now, some of these guys just go overseas to make up for these losses, and it appears that it could be a new possible landing spot for the young guard, that he might go with the Raptors if there is any actual suitor. This guy, Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, he reported that the Raptors are considering adding another point guard to their team in free agency, and with that being the case, there is a good possibility that Jalen Noel is on their radar. And the theory that the Timberwolves could plan to re-sign Noel to a cheaper deal was based on the scenario where no other NBA teams felt that it was worthwhile to sign Noel to a new contract. But if the Raptors think he's worth paying $7 to $10 million a year for, then Minnesota should probably do nothing to stop them. Now, in all honesty, Toronto could use Noel's services. He would be an upgrade over Malachi Flynn and could provide some relief minutes for Gary Trent Jr. when the team, needs some scoring and power. Now, if the Raptors end up deciding to tank and he's not talented enough to be a ceiling raiser, at this point, the Wolves roster is just far too deep at guard for Jalen Noel to be a high priority. So if any other team wants to make an overpay for him, it's not something that should affect Minnesota's outlook enough for it to matter. Now, for number 5 that I have on the list is Willie Hernan Gomez. Now, with this guy, it's kind of interesting because he hasn't had any constant fixture in any NBA rotation since his rookie season in 2016-2017 with the New York Knicks. The reasons for that vary from team to team, but the most consistent is probably just the nature of today's game in general. Hernan Gomez has some perimeter skills, but his game is closer to that of like old school bigs than today's rim runners and playmaking fives and guys that can really space the floor and close out on a dime with three-point shooters and defend multiple positions at any point, kind of like a Jokic type. But in Hernan Gomez's limited opportunities, he's always pretty much been able to produce. Now, that's pretty insane to think about because he only gets small opportunity after small opportunity. But he's averaged at least 15 points and 12 rebounds per 75 possessions with 50-plus field goal percentage in each of his 7 seasons. The only guys that have pretty much been able to do that in their last 7 seasons are Rudy Gobert and Jonas Valanciunas. So we'll see if Hernan Gomez ever gets a new home in the NBA. Number 4 I have on the list is Hamidou Diallo. Now, after posting a 93rd percentile defensive estimated plus-minus in 2021, and then soon to be this 25-year-old Hamidou Diallo, he then pushed his way up to the 99th percentile this season. So defensive-wise, this guy is absolutely crazy. And this is pretty much thanks to the fact that he has a 7-foot wingspan and the above-the-rim athleticism, and he has strong defensive rebound and steal rates for a guy who's 6'5" and who's a guard wing. Now, combining that with more concerted effort to take shots around the rim makes him a more dynamic two-way threat. Now, last season, he averaged 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 steal with the Detroit Pistons. And Pistons now have some solid pieces, especially with guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, and Asar Thompson. But who knows if he'll get picked up again. Now, number 3 I have on the list is Kelly Oubre Jr. Now, Oubre, in his last season, he kind of flew under the radar, probably because he's only played 48 games for a bad Charlotte Hornets team. But he put up career-high points. He hit 20 points and had 1 steal per game, actually almost 2 steals. He also averaged 5 rebounds a game, and that shouldn't go unnoticed. Sure, his efficiency or lack thereof is a problem, and he needs to involve his teammates more, but his slashing and scoring could bolster a second unit, I'm sure. Now, while his defense has been poor to say the least, he's got a crazy wing size at 6'7" height and a 7'2" wingspan. Now, he definitely has the athleticism to give him the tools to be solid on that end of the floor, but, he needs the right role, whether it's a 7th or an 8th man on a good team. He could honestly be a positive difference maker, especially off the bench. Now, I'd honestly be shocked if no NBA team actually picks up this guy. Now, going into the number 2 top free agent, I would say it's PJ Washington. At this point, given the limited spending power left in the market, it's honestly hard to imagine the restricted agent of PJ Washington signing an offer sheet with anyone other than the Charlotte Hornets, and I'm sure the Charlotte Hornets would probably just match. Now, he did start 73 games for the Hornets last season, and they haven't really added anyone who will threaten his spot, although I should say that the return of Miles Bridges could probably eat into his shots and his minutes. He's still a solid player to where he should expect to be on the same team or at least another. He also makes plenty of sense as a floor spacing 4 in today's NBA. His percentages, they kind of tumbled last season, but he still hit 37.5% of his threes. And last season, he averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. Now, I think he's been an underappreciated stat sheet stuffer too. He doesn't put up crazy totals in any one column, but he definitely adds a bit of everything. Even defensively, he's pretty solid as well. Now, there are only 14 other players in NBA history who match or exceed all of Washington's career marks in rebounding percentage, assist percentage, block percentage, and steal percentage. So for him to not be signed, especially being this good from a defensive angle, would honestly be a complete justice not only to the NBA, but to the level of player that he is. Now, number 1 that I have on the list, which probably isn't much of a shock to anybody listening to this right now, is Christian Wood. Now, this is probably the most interesting free agent on this list. Wood has been one of the strangest players in the NBA, especially last season. This guy, for about a month from mid-December to mid-January, he started and averaged 20 points, almost 10 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, 2.5 assists, and hit about 2.5 threes on every game. Now, even throughout the season, he still averaged 17 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block for the Mavericks. And in a contract year, right when he was starting to look like a high-end starting big man, Coach Jason Kidd and an untimely injury kind of destroyed Wood's role. Now, the injury costed him 8 games, and he never made another start, and he just averaged about 21 minutes from there. And a team in need of some outside shooting, a little bit of shot blocking, and the need for a center would probably secure Wood for a bargain. And by bargain, I literally mean a veteran minimum salary. A team like the Lakers could really use his help to either start with or back up Anthony Davis's minutes. But I think the bigger issue here is that apparently he's got an ego problem. Now, Nick Angstadt from Locked On Mavericks podcast, he mentioned that the problem with Christian Wood is that in the Anthony Davis games, if hypothetically speaking he was on the Lakers, if he were to play with Anthony Davis or play off the bench, Wood would probably think that he's actually better than Anthony Davis. This Angstadt guy said that he'll come in and say, this is my time, this is me and my best skill in shooting, scoring, doing those things, and so anytime I get the opportunity, I will do that. And the problem is that he takes you out of your offense a lot, and he thinks that he should be an all-star. So, this is kind of scary stuff when you hear that from both Mavericks fans and people who probably know a lot about the Mavericks, and then learning about Christian Wood and how he is as a player. There's a reason why the Mavs didn't re-sign this guy. It wasn't like he wasn't performing. So I think part of the problem of him joining the Lakers is that Rob Pelinka doesn't want him to disrupt the chemistry in the locker room. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to all these guys. Some of them are probably completely done when it comes to the NBA. Some of them may just end their careers overseas, and some of them may make a return. Who knows? But either way, it's just crazy to see how just in a year or two, everything could completely change and the trajectory of a player's future could essentially go down.